In our last video, we showed how we can use the for loop to iterate over a series of items in a list. When we iterate over a series of list items, those items can be either integers or floats or strings. We showed that last time. But this time we're going to show how we can iterate over a series of numbers in a more efficient way. So for example, if we wanted to print out a whole bunch of numbers, so for example, if we wanted to check out the values from 1 to 1,000, right? Doing it like this where we're typing all these out is just really cumbersome. It's going to take us a really long time, right? So it doesn't make any sense for us to do it this way. So what we can do is in Python we have a function called range, and range gives us a range of numbers, and we can see that it has uh, three parameters here that are listed. This first parameter, it's in square brackets. That means it's optional. So is the last one. So it has three parameters. It has a start and a stop and a step size. And so the first thing that we're going to do, we're just going to show the required parameter, which is the stop parameter, right? And so if we just pass range a value, say the value 10, then range is going to go ahead and iterate over a series of values and stop when it gets to 10. So if we run this, range will give us back the values from 0 and it'll stop at 10, right? So let's go ahead and run it. It says we have to save it, all right? And you'll notice that it prints out the values from 0 to 9. So some key things to notice here is that it starts at 0. So 0 is the default starting value. And the last value we'll notice is 9, even though we specified the value 10. So what that means is the range actually gives us back the numbers starting at 0, ending right before it gets to 10. So it goes from 0 inclusively to 10 exclusively, meaning it stops as soon as it hits 10 and it doesn't iterate that last iteration of the loop. So in this case, it prints out 10 numbers, but they're starting at 0. So it's 0 to 9. If we want to include the value 10, we actually have to run it for one more than that. And so we can run that. And in that case, it'll give us the values up to 10. Right. Now we noticed before that when we typed range, it gave us these other options. So there's a start and a stop option. So we showed that before that start actually gives us back a default value of 0, right? So if we said just range 10, that's equivalent to if we just said range 0 to 10. So the default value for starting position is 0. And so if we run this, we'll get the same result that we got before, from 0 to 9. Yep, and there it is. Now we can actually go ahead and change these default values. For example, so let's say that we want to start at the value 10 and go up to 1,000, right? So we can actually run this. And we see it going up and up and up and up, right? I'm just going to go ahead and stop it. Now you can interrupt the Python shell anytime you want. You can use Control-C, which gives the keyboard an interrupt that says quit whatever you're executing, and that'll interrupt the shell. Now, we also saw that when we typed range, that it gave us a step option as well. So there's another way that we can iterate through values. So for example, if we wanted to count the even values from 1 to 10, right? We could start with 1 more than 10, and we could say if I is evenly divisible by 2, then we know that I is even, right? So we can say the value I is even. Else, the value of I is odd. Okay, we can run this. Right, and so it gives us the even and odds. But let's say we can actually simplify this a little bit, and we'll just go ahead and we could just print out just the even values from 1 to 10. So if we run this, right, we get 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. But there's another way that we could do this. We could get rid of this if statement and actually say that when we iterate over these values from 1 to 11, so we're iterating from the range starting at 1, ending just before 11, and this tells us the step size in between each iteration. So this is how much it'll increase every iteration. And actually, the first value would be odd, so in this case these are just spitting out odds. It'll print out the value 1, and then 3, and then 5, 7, and so on. So we can run that. So there we go. So that's the range function in a nutshell. Now there's something else that we can keep in mind. So let's say we wanted to count down from 10 to 1 or 10 to 0. We can go ahead and actually reverse these values. So in this case, if we're counting down, we're going to be starting at the value 10, right? And we're going to be counting down to 0. Okay, and with each iteration, the default step size is +1, right? So if we started from 10 approaching 0 and we're adding 1 each time, we're never going to reach 0, right? So we're going to be 10, 11, 12, 13. So if we want to count down, we actually have to have a step size of a negative value. So in this case, the first iteration it's going to be 10, the next iteration it's going to be 10 minus 1, which is 9, and then the next iteration is going to be 9 minus 1, which is 8, right? And so on and so on. And so in this case, this is actually going to just count down, so we can actually just print I, and we can have a little print statement here that says blast off. And we can go ahead and run this. And we see it count down. So that's the range function in a nutshell.